Alright, so today on Film on High Reviews, we're going to be talking about the movie Brotherhood of the Wolf. This is a 2001 French film directed by Christophe Gans, starring Samuel Le Bihan, Vincent Cassel, Marc Dacascos, and Monica Bellucci. And this is kind of a hard movie to talk about. It's hard to categorize. It's a bit all over the map. Kind of an action movie, kind of a mystery, kind of a drama, kind of a horror film. But it kind of all adds together to a pretty good ensemble. So what did you think of Brotherhood of the Wolf?
It was good.
Yeah.
It's fucking good.
So the movie is set in the 1700s, somewhere around, I think, 1764. And it's mainly centered around two characters, a French nobleman named Grégoire de Fronsac, and his partner Manny, who's kind of his blood brother, this native Iroquois warrior who's also a shaman. He's just a fucking awesome character. And the two of them are investigating this series of murders that seem to be caused by some kind of beast. People think it's a wolf, but as the story progresses, it becomes pretty obvious that there's something much more sinister going on.
First off, we got the action. The action reminisces a lot of The Matrix. It is well choreographed. You do get to see where the enemies are whenever somebody is fighting. There is a lot of slow-mo, however.
Yeah, they used a lot of slow-mo. Some of the editing's a bit questionable, but, the fight scenes are so well choreographed and so well done. And, it's an odd blend because the movie has, it's, on one hand, it's almost like this costume drama with these people all dressed up, these nobles, but there's also just these crazy action scenes. It makes for an interesting mix, but it actually, it turned out to be better than I expected it to be. But to me, the real heart of the movie was kind of the relationship between the two main characters, like Fronsac and Manny, there's a great moment where because they keep acting like he's his servant or, I'll take him to the servants' quarters. And he's like, who is this guy? And he tells him, oh, he's my brother. Just when he tells him that, it's obvious that these guys have something way deeper going on.
And it's interesting, too, because every time Manny is doing something that everybody else is questioning, he's just like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
he's
exactly. He doesn't question it. He knows he's onto something.
There's a cool moment where I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but you see them getting ready, and you see the main character. He's more of the gun guy, as you would believe, and then you see Manny getting ready for something, and you're like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, he's got the war paint and the hatchets and everything. He goes really into his warrior state, he doesn't care for firearms or anything like that. And there's also a bit of a love triangle running through the movie too. The main character Fronsac is fascinating because he's the royal taxidermist. Obviously he's a man of some noble bearing. He's here on order of the king, so he's a pretty big deal. He's an ex-soldier. That's how he met Manny. Mm-hmm. And, he's an intelligent man, scholarly. We see him performing autopsies. It's clear that he's an intelligent guy. But he's also somewhat of an anti-hero in the sense that, he describes himself as a libertine. He likes prostitutes. We see him hanging around whorehouses and stuff. And, he's got a thing for, the daughter of the royal dude, and he's, he really wants to get things going with her, but she's constantly kind of playing games with him because she knows what kind of man he is. And there's also another relationship he has with the prostitute who works at the local whorehouse, played by Monica Bellucci, who at first seems to be some kind of, Italian mystic or something. She seems to be, almost a gypsy fortune teller, but as the film goes on, again, it's clear that there's more going on with her.
And honestly, there are some things that you really need to pay attention to in this movie. Know that, yes, it is long, but it is also packed in with a lot of, I want to say, interesting dialogue.
Oh, there's a lot of, cool little details and stuff. And
one of them was with, let's say, there was a scene with Monica Bellucci where she says something along the lines of, married women would poison their husbands slowly by, with the wine and stuff. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting.
To make sure they wouldn't leave.
But that
twisted logic.
But that very night, he gets a freaking trip of a dream.
He gets a crazy dream, which is almost foreshadowing that she shouldn't trust her. But she turns out to be pretty much on his side in the end. And the movie, and we should also talk about Vincent Cassel's character. Vincent Cassel kind of plays the snooty, noble bastard kind of guy. He's apparently this big game hunter kind of guy who was in Africa and he lost his arm. But again, like almost everything in this movie, there's more to him than meets the eye. And Like, I guess we should just come out and say it. He's pretty much the villain of the movie, and, you know, they're not exactly subtle about it. Like, right from the beginning when you meet him, he's pretty much a creep and a douchebag, so it's obvious. But I think he did a pretty good job with the role. Like, you know, I'm a fan of Vincent Cassel. Like, he's in one of my favorite films, La Haine. He's in Eastern Promises. He's done so much great work.
Nice.
And in this film, he does a good job just kind of playing the sleazy weasel kind of guy. Monica Bellucci was good, too, but, you know, her role was not that meaty. She showed off her assets, though.
Like, in this role, she was basically more of like, okay, cool. I'm going to give you some of the clues that you'll need in order to figure out all of this type of stuff.
Yeah.
But
she's like the mysterious presence lingering in the background, and you're constantly wondering exactly what's going on with her. The main actor's alright in the role. He's, you know, maybe a little bland, but I think he did a good job. He kind of undergoes like a transformation in the film, where at the beginning he's like a dandy with his ponytail and kind of this, like, you know, cultured, not quite a snob, but, you know, kind of a cultured guy, very well dressed. But then later on in the film, he goes full native and starts killing people left and right. It's a pretty insane transformation, but it works for the character, and I think he did a good job. But maybe the best performance in the film, oddly enough, belongs to Mark Dacascos, and he really doesn't say much. You know, his presence does so much in the film, just as this kind of, you know, brooding kind of badass. And yeah, he added a lot to the movie. It was impressive. Less is more. You know, his acting was good in that sense.
I agree with that. One thing I did like about the movie was the spiritual aspect of it all, where you see the Dacascos character always interacting with this white wolf.
Yes.
And it's interesting, too, because it's the main character who saves that white wolf in the beginning. When
they're on like a hunt and they're just indiscriminately killing all the wolves, and the girl's about to shoot it and he stops her from doing it, and then Manny's like, thanks. Yeah.
You know, so it was like another sign of, like, you know, their trust and their brotherhood of, like, you know, I know that he doesn't like it when don't kill animals indiscriminately. Like,
well, yeah, he's got that kind of connection to nature and stuff. Like, there's a scene where he kind of reads everyone's like kind of animal spirit, and like the main Maquis guy, like, because there's a frame story throughout the whole movie where there's this character named the Maquis who's telling the story to us. Like, he's writing the story as best he remembers it, and he's also a character within the narrative. And, you know, there's a moment where Manny reads him and he's like, oh, you're the serpent is wise, kind of thing. So kind of commenting on his overall character. And, you know, and, you know, like, with the whole beast aspect, there's a lot of, like, animal motifs in the film and stuff like that, so it all kind of tied together pretty well. We should talk about the beast itself. It kind of fools you, because for a while you're wondering, like, is this a wolf? They kind of even make you think that maybe it's a human, because at one point he finds, like, metal on the corpse.
Honestly, I thought it was a serial killer for the longest time.
Exactly. Like, we were wondering at first, because, like, oh, is this going to be, like, a human being? This could be kind of disappointing if it turns... But no, there's a beast. There's actually a beast.
This thing, the first time you see it, of course, this is 2001, so the CGI...
Yeah, the CGI is not perfect.
But, you know, leave yourself a little room for imagination, and this thing is a monster, man.
It looks pretty fearsome. Well, because, you know, at first it looks like something truly monstrous, but then, you know, like, that's almost a recurring theme in the film, like, people having more to them than you think. Like, I mentioned, the main character at first seems kind of proper, but then he goes full badass, and the main villain, Vincent Cassel, like, throughout the movie you think he's one-armed, but then at the end, no, he still has his other arm, it's just horribly maimed. And it's kind of the same thing with the beast. It looks like this fearsome, horrible animal, but at the end we find out it was actually a lion cub that was brought back from Africa, and they tortured it and trained it and made it into this vicious creature, and basically forced it to serve the aims, because, you know, the whole political story of the film, it's a bit far-fetched and over the top, because, like, the film was based on true events. There actually was a series of murders that occurred in France in the 1700s that were attributed to a beast. So they kind of took that general concept and just ran with it and made it into this crazy action political thriller. But basically the general idea is the church is, like, kind of using this to terrorize people and, you know, force them to believe in religion. It's a pretty insane plot, but it's just, like, so like, just with the general vibe of the film, it kind of works, you know. Like, the film has this kind of manic, crazy intensity, and it doesn't really want to, you know, like, even though it does have that kind of pretense of a historical drama, it doesn't want to, like, bore you down with the details. It's about, like, you know, the action and the movement.
even with all the political talk and everybody saying, like, okay, cool, what it really comes down to is like, okay, look, we got a beast, and we don't want to undermine the king's rules, so we say that, yeah, we did slay the beast. Everybody's gonna be calm and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. But then, yeah, they at one point they even make them. They're like, oh, we killed some random wolf, but you're gonna make it look like a beast so we can appease people. And he doesn't want to do it, but his hands are kind of tied, so he does it. And that's kind of our first clue that there's something deeper going on here. Like, there's actual high level people that are trying to keep this hidden, and it's like, ooh.
And good on him on like how he made the beast, because they used an actual, well, not real, but a wolf. And then he made it into
he made it look all black and like fearsome and stuff with like yellow eyes.
So it was just like, okay, cool. That looks like a fucking beast.
Yeah, it did look kind of cool. If I was some dumb peasant in the 1700s, I'd be like, oh my god, that's horrifying.
But there's this one scene. I think it does have its flaws, but there's this one lady who's just going about her day. She finds this lamb in this like little crevice or something like that. And she jumps in, and you find out it's like a little puddle, tries to save the lamb, but then you hear the beast coming in, and you're like, oh, what the fuck? Why did you go after the fucking lamb? Throw away the lamb. And she throws it, and you're like, okay, cool.
Well, there you go.
She's about to run away, and she falls back down, and this one you finally see in full reality.
Yeah, you get a
beast.
Pretty good look at the beast. And it's pretty messed up looking.
Oh, just like, and that little dog was just there looking at the whole thing, being like, well, you're fucked.
Well, also, like, one of the things, too, like, Manny's character is killed off halfway through the film. And it kind of, like, Manny was a great character, so it's kind of sad, it's a loss. But at the same time, it kind of provides the impetus for the main character to just go and destroy, like, this political order. He has a personal kind of motive with his revenge now. Although it would have been cool to have actually Manny be present in the end and participate in those fights, considering how badass he is. And, there's a tragic irony, because when Manny's introduced, he steps in to kind of protect these people who are being hassled, these kind of gypsy people who I think are indigenous to the forest. And those people are later kind of the people who are involved in killing him, so it's pretty sad.
When the main character fights off the main villain, there's a good justice about it, because that was the guy who basically did the kill shot on Manny.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you watch that scene when Manny's fighting all the gypsy guys, and he's like, yeah, he's slashed up and stuff, but he's still raring and go. Then this fucker comes out of nowhere and shoots him in the back. It's like, man,
well, yeah, they set it up earlier in the movie because he specifically uses silver bullets. And then when Fronsac does the autopsy, he's like, oh, silver bullet, he knows.
So,
and they have a pretty badass fight too at the end. Like, again, like, the movie is almost like kind of schizophrenic in a way, because it wants to be like this kind of serious political historical drama, but it also just wants to have these crazy balls out action sequences, and it's fun. It's a fun mix of a lot of different elements.
The main villain's weapon at the end.
Well, yeah, we should talk about that. Like, one of the things that kind of makes this movie remarkable for some people is it was clearly an influence to some degree or another on the video game Bloodborne.
Yes.
If you look at the cover or the poster of the movie, you can tell, because you see the two characters are wearing these kind of outfits that have become iconic to the hunters. They have the long coats with the brim covering their face and the tricorn hats, and they don't really wear those outfits for long. They wear them at the beginning, and then the rest of the movie they're kind of without them, but that was enough to make an impression. And yeah, at the end, the weapon, like you were saying,
first off, it looks like a sword, and then he uses it like a whiplash or something like that, and it's just like,
chain whip. It's literally like a trick weapon, like,
basically. And then if you look at it, and if you play Bloodborne, pretty much the weapon looks like the threaded cane from Bloodborne, and goes like into a whip and stuff.
Yeah, at first it seems like a sword, but then it just separates and goes into this long whip. Like, that was a pretty awesome moment. And yeah, like, I have a feeling that Miyazaki, the creator of the series, he has a fondness for this movie, because another thing that kind of impressed me about the movie was the locations and the sets that they chose to film in. Like, apparently they actually filmed parts of it in an actual French castle, and like the exteriors are beautiful, like just these forests and overgrown with vines and trees, like a lot of it. And there's like these little ruined fortresses. Like, a lot of it actually reminded me of some of the level design I've seen in Dark Souls. So I have a feeling that Miyazaki's a fan of this movie.
And honestly, there's the one thing I do find kind of weird, is that this is the first time. This is 2022, and this is the first time I've ever heard about this movie. Apparently
I've heard
this
of it
was-
before,
yeah?
but like it's not super well known.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, another thing that reminded me of Bloodborne too was just kind of the general theme of the hunt, the beast,
Yeah.
and also like the influence of the church and corruption and stuff. Like that's also a big theme in Bloodborne. So it's almost like with Bloodborne they took like these general ideas in the Brotherhood of the Wolf and just mashed it with a shitload of Lovecraft and put it in like Victorian England.
It does kind of play into the old thinking in a way where superstition was rampant in a way, and you saw a lot of, whenever they would transition into things, you would either see like a Christ symbol, or you would see like a painting of dogs or wolves or something like that. You know, it's a lot of imagery of like, you know, savage things, or, you know.
And this movie
religious things.
has one of the best transitions in film history, where it transitions from Monica Bellucci's naked body, her breasts, and then it transitions to literal like a mountainside, and like a snow-capped mountainside.
And
That
it
was
still-
like
it's-
wow.
It still had the face as well, so it was just like, yeah.
That's actually pretty impressive. It was like, wow, nice work, guys.
But
The CG on the beast is a little dodgy at times, but you got that part right.
honestly, no, this movie was really cool.
Yeah, on the whole, I was impressed with it. Like, I went into it not really knowing what to expect, and yeah, it definitely, it blew my mind. Like, I didn't see it going the ways it did, and it was impressive. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
You know, so if you have the time on your hands to watch a 2.5 hour movie, this is the type of movie that you won't feel the minutes. You'll come out of it and you'll be like, my God, that was good.
Well, yeah, if you're like into
something
action
else.
movies, horror type thriller movies, you'll enjoy this. It's definitely something else, that's for sure. So on the whole, I would probably give it 4 out of 5. Like, you know, not a perfect movie. Like, there are some flaws, but I just enjoyed it so much, the way they mashed together genres. It was entertaining. It was more entertaining than anything I've seen in a while, and I like the real life historical context. Yeah.
I give it a 4 as well. Go watch this movie.
Check it out.